long established research experience with us, because we are doing some kind of dialogue. It is called dialogical method that really helps not only to transform discourse, but it is one of the active learning methods that scholars can gain from the face-to-face or from the distance dialogical method. Please, Nandi sir,
Yes,
you
yes,
continue to
yes,
talk.
yes. Just I will conclude within few seconds. Just what I am saying that nowadays it is very difficult to understand the dynamics of social changes, political changes, economic changes. So based on a particular method, it is very much difficult to deal with a particular topic by a particular researcher. So it is better to interact with other disciplines, with other approaches. So to address the social problems, political problems, economic problems, this method, what you have mentioned rightly, I am fully agree with you, because without this approach, I mean interconnectivity and interdisciplinary approach, it is very much difficult for scholars now to complete his research and relevant research. So many research have been done, but which research works are relevant? Those research works should be based on dynamic methods. So it will be changing. For a time being, we can use a particular method and then it can be changed. So our outlook should be opener, should not be closed. Okay, so it should be flexible. Okay, so I should appreciate your opinion and your approach regarding this methodology. I think our research scholars will be interested to apply this approach in their research work, ongoing research work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nondi sir, who has a very long. I'm continually learning from Dr. Nondi sir, and recently we finished 2 different book projects, kind of transdisciplinary book project, where we have brought people from public administration, people from international relations, people from literary studies, people from cultural studies, people from anthropology. We had some excellent contribution from African continent, where we have our friends and collaborators from anthropology, from critical ethnicity studies, religious studies, they have contributed the chapter, as well as people from nursing studies as well, right? So we can easily, I think you may agree or disagree, that the value of interdisciplinary research to produce a research outcome is quite important. Maybe the piece that you are developing should have some applications for a medical doctor. A medical doctors needs to gain some ideas from societal member for which his or her service is located on, right? So there is diverse methods and concepts that we need to share. Dear participants, are you all hearing me now? Are you clearly hearing me?
Yes, very much. Yes.
Yep. I'm just checking with everyone, because I'm
yes.
talking from different continents. Sometimes internet my laptop may die. So আমরা এই প্রশ্নের উত্তরটি এত সময় বের করার চেষ্টা করলাম. Normally we hardly speak Bengali when we give an international kind of talk, but as all the participants are from Bengali speaking part of the world, so it is my privilege to speak my own tongue. So now in the last half an hour, we have discussed what is transdisciplinary research and role that transdisciplinary research and methods really play in creating knowledge. Now let me unpack 7 core fundamental principles of engaged research. There are so many principles, but these are the method that I learned borrowing the insights from Paul Jens and Liam Maggie from the Institute for Culture and Society here at the Western Sydney University. That is a leading research institute, internationally recognized because of its ERA rank and high quality research that they have been producing. The first principle is about engaged research is developed through relationships of reciprocity. That means the relationality. For instance, if you are doing an interview-based research, you need to build up good rapport with the public administrations or bureaucrats, right? So there should be a relationship based on the reciprocity. For instance, you're interviewing bureaucrats in the city of Kolkata. So research participants is always looking for how his knowledge or his narratives would be helpful for you to unpack your research. So relationality is quite important components to understand the research and the research question that you are unpacking in your research. Second one is temporality, which is very, very important. Temporality is regarding to a temporal dimensions, the time frame. Particularly, engaged research is long-term and future-oriented. For instance, if you are doing a research on human security and particularly the impact of COVID-19, longitudinal impact of COVID-19 in the academic system in the city of Kolkata. So the learning that we will gain from your research will be applicable with a similar kind of pandemic that might happen in the world. So I would argue that the principle two is very important to understand the temporal dynamics regarding the validity, replicability of your research. Particularly, I can remember when I was in grade 5, there was the Kargil War in 1997. Good numbers of scholars have studied Kargil War, considering the social peace and political peace and cultural peace for the people of Kashmir, and particularly with those who have lost their loved ones during the Kashmir War, right? An engaged researcher will be deeply politically and emotionally engaged with the research community to provide and sketch a story that would have broader implications. So temporal dimensions or temporality, that means the time frame is very important because in Western and in global South countries, temporal dimensions is skipped sometimes. For instance, you may have some data that was gathered in 90s. You need to give a new outlook that how this data is still valid regarding the broader study aim. And third principle is about engaged research is conducted in relations to lived experience or lived places, recognizing that the places are stressed across various extensions of spatiality from the local to the global. So we are living in such a time where there is serious kind of inequalities within our society. So it's very important that what kind of communities we are researching with. Maybe it's a place-based community. Maybe it might be an IT community. It might be an engaged community. It might be a post-colonial communities. It might be a refugee communities. So the role of speciality significantly influences research design and research protocol. The fourth one, and the most important one, is about the intersectionality. I'm the big fan of this intersectionality. That's the kind of Gramscian sociological concept emerged during 1980s. Intersections of what? For instance, Tanu is doing a research on human security. He's analyzing the well-being and the health-related human securities in Bangladesh. So it would be quite interesting to understand how health-related human securities does intersect with the political securities, or how state-led securities intersect with the pandemic-led insecurities in the social life, right? So that is the kind of dynamics that is quite important. For instance, if you are born and raised in India, but you are doing research in Bangladesh, right? So your geographical locations might intersect with the participants' geographical locations and understanding of a concept. For instance, in India, particularly in West Bengal, the concept of caste does matter to understand the social hierarchy, right? So caste intersect with economic status. Caste intersects in obtaining a state-led educational facilities. Caste does intersect with religion. Caste does intersect with so many things. So intersectional lens to problematize the research question and to issue a research question and to apply socially engaged political research methods and methodology. And we, of course, are you understanding the principles of engaged research? Please raise your voice.
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
Is it very clear?
Yes, sir.
So if you say that, doctor, you are going very quick, I will really decrease my talk volume, or I'll be speaking quite slowly. So anyway, so the last 5 or 7 minutes I've discussed about the 4 principles of engaged research. Let me continue to discuss about the remaining 3 principles. Second one is about the ontology. That means engaged research always try to find out, to work through differences. As I have already told that we are living in such a society where inequalities or intergenerational poverty are quite predominant, right? So we all study inequalities, inequalities in the political structure, inequalities in the power structures, inequalities and hierarchy in the social structures, even inequalities are embedded within our own thinking process. So there is horizontal inequalities and political inequalities to understand the discourse of power, and also the location of the researchers. For instance, if you are doing research on human security, depending on the research question, you might have so many elements and variables in your research, right? We always deal with the variables, right? Dependent variables and independent variables while doing the mixed method research, right? So it's quite important that how we make a deep connections between different variables, that is called ontology. So ontological positioning and framing is quite important for doing an engaged research. And principle 6 is embedded on what kind of knowledge we are producing. We know that person is political, so knowledge is political. So knowledge is a powerful element. You see, the power of intersecting dialogical method. A scholar from development studies and a scholar, an established scholar from IR, we are discussing about the applications of transdisciplinary method to construct our arguments and positionality, right? That is called the philosophy of knowledge and power discourses in practice. So engaged research always does focus on epistemology, that's the branches of knowledge, application of knowledge, and how knowledge is produced, and whether the knowledge that you are producing does really connect on the marginalized social class, or particularly the disadvantaged community. So disadvantage, the definition of disadvantage and marginalizations and vulnerabilities of the colonial framing, it's quite important that being a engaged researcher or being a researcher in political science, how you are unpacking those things, right? So for instance, X, Y said, so power means this, Y said power means this. In your research, you want to understand how you have understood this concept and applying this concept into your own research framing. Either, if you can't do it, the epistemological applications of your research will be absolutely flawed, believe me. And the third one is about the methodology. So nowadays people are talking about the digital ethnography, digital method, digital humanities, and so many other things. So methods and methodology are not kind of fixed things. It's not a static things. Instead, it's a transformatory, right? In the last 10 years or in the past 20 years, there has been a significant transform in the field of social research methods or methodologies. Particularly engaged research is sensitive. Yesterday, I was invited to give a talk on gender sensitivity. So drawing the insights from my last talk, what I have learned that being sensitive to deal with the distressed people is quite important. For instance, if you are doing an engaged research with a person who had just came back from the case of COVID-19, you need to be very sensitive. We need to be very sensitive and respectful. So to construct a respectful relationships with your research participants is quite interesting. So participants, informant, and respondents, these are the key terms and terminology you are applying, that you are using in your research to collect your data. We should be very highly ethical and practical, considering the consequences of researchers' geographical locations, educational status, and the power relations, embedded power relations between the researcher and the research participants. So dear audience, it is very clear that what we have spoken in the last 10 to 15 minutes regarding the 7 principles of engaged research.
Definitely,
Is it very
sir.
clear? So in a nutshell, let me summarize what I have spoken. 7th principles deals with the methodology, and it talks about the sensitivity and emotions and the respect to understand who is your participants, who is going to be the part of your research, who is being included and who is being excluded from the research process, right? So how we need to handle those ethical dilemma and challenges. There might be several risks. Couple of 2 or 3 of my colleagues, senior colleagues, while doing MPhil in the bargain, they are brutally killed doing their research in Africa. We don't want any researcher to be lost, right? So it means the geographical locations and the positionality of the researchers is very important to run on a specific inquiry that is called epistemology. And particularly with the variables that we play with or deal with, we can explore the different connections about the variables or the components of your research question, right? That is called ontology. And I have also spoken about the intersections of what? Age, class, sex, gender, marital status, hierarchy, institutional arrangement, so many things, even inequalities and spatialities. Location is very important. Maybe the way sexuality is understood in Rangpur in Bangladesh is absolutely different way the people in Delhi understand about sexuality. And temporality, that means the time frame is also important, and also the relationality. So these are the kind of 7 guiding principles of engaged research that I follow.
Yes.
Maybe there are more than other different principles which you can borrow and I can learn from you regarding this. And particularly those principles have been borrowed from Paul and Maggie. And in the last slide, I have given 3 specific readings that will be very helpful to understand about the application of engaged research. Now it's a very important question that what are the key concepts that we play with while doing engaged research? The first question is about the algorithms. I'm not going to define what is algorithms. Algorithms is a system or mechanism that we play with, right? Originally, it is a vocabulary that is used by either mathematician or AI scholars, artificial intelligence scholars. So algorithm is an interesting process to understand the interconnectedness between nature, economy, ecology, and politics. So I'm talking about the circles of sustainability. So nature, economy, ecology. Maybe the terms economy and economics as a discipline and economy. The term economy was used by Plato in his time, while economics was defined by other scholars. So the term economy and economics is very different. Like culture and dark culture is very different. So culture is a very different meaning and applications. And then of course data. Nowadays we are being influenced by the applications of big data. So dealing with data, managing with data, protecting with the data, and analyzing data is the key challenge for the English researcher. And then we most of the time we use the term development, particularly in social science. It's a very confusing term and vague term in development. Also ecology, economy, ideas, imaginaries, and infrastructure. So the reading that I'll be supplying, it does give some conceptual understanding about the applications of infrastructures, imaginaries, ideas, globalization, ecology, development, data, culture, communities, and algorithm. Now we can see the circles of sustainability. What we do, what we say, what we research is all about sustainability. Even sustainability is a very vague term in social science. You see, what Dr. Nandi was discussing at the very beginning is the combination of these 4 things, right? These are the circles of our life. These are the circles of our economy, ecology. These are the circles of social science research, right? So of course we can produce extensive critiques of this circle, which I followed during my doctoral research. Originally, these circles of sustainability has been developed by 2 distinguished supervisors. They have propagated the term called circles of sustainability to measure the human security and security dimensions. See the components of politics. We all are doing this kind of research. See the component of economics, see the component of culture, see the component of ecology, right? So social science research is a kind of combination of these 4 different things, right? And sometimes we become happy, sometimes we become satisfied, sometimes we do not become we become very unsatisfied or dissatisfied, right? Sometimes we become bad, sometimes we become critical. So it is up to you that how you're going to situate your research within the broader disciplinary binary. So what I'm claiming here is that the research that we are doing is situated within the broader circles of sustainability. Of course, we can challenge this mechanism because in the post-COVID world, the dynamics of inquiry and learning has become extensively different. So I believe that all of you have your own research question, right? Being a research scholar, I believe that some of you are on track to complete your PhD, some of you are drafting a proposal, some of you are writing your research project, some of you are polishing your thesis, right? So it's quite simple that you are quite handy in using a research method. So I've come up with a diagram, right? So all of we use different theory in our own research, because the research question, your research question really informs the audience or the knowledge consumers about the research method and factors affecting or impacting the choice of your research method, right? So maybe you're studying human security dimensions. It is quite important to become very practical and ethical. So Practicality involves time, money, funding, opportunities, and access skills and characteristics of the researcher, while the ethical means the things I have listed there. Nonetheless, in ethics particularly, there is risk and risk mitigation strategies. I really don't know how your institute or your university does handle ethics, the priority of ethics in social science research. I cannot comment on this because I really don't know. Then the nature of the topic. You see, the diagram that I have prepared here does really inform that what kind of topic you choose. Maybe you are choosing two different communities over their temporality, so we can compare and contrast of different social pictures. We can go for unstructured interview, we can go for live story interview, we can go for engaged participant observation, we can go for direct observation, we can go for indirect observation, we can go for ethnographic observation. Then while we are doing a big survey, maybe 14,000 participants, we can go for survey questionnaire. Maybe we are doing historical research, right? Then we need to survey the historical documentation, maybe content analysis or discourse analysis or alternative discourse analysis is one of the key methods that we can apply. Since it is the age of COVID-19, the research, the application of several methods are becoming in online. Maybe we can do telephone interview, we can do desk-based analysis, we can do Skype interview, we can do the Zoom run interview. So there are so many ways. Even some of you are might be economists. You run high-level econometric research. You run the different model-based research, right? So what we do, we try to relate all those variables like the ontology, that is called reliability, because we try to create the representativeness to construct our story. If you're writing a thesis, your thesis is a story on a specific subject matters that needs to be very, very valid in terms of its political applications, because we act as interpreters. So interpretivism is quite key to draw the story from insight, in depth, and feeling. As I said, for running a qualitative researcher, you need to be very emphatic to understand the worldview of the social domain, cultural domain, and transformatory social research that we have been doing in our own projects. So dear audience, have you understood the application of this diagram that I have explained? Is it quite clear?
Yes, sir. Actually, chart is very good. So, very clear.
You see the diagram, right? Because you have a
Yes.
research question, you are writing a thesis or your monograph based on the research question. So one hand, we need to be very practical that how many months do we have in doing this research? Do you have enough money? Do you have enough time? Do you have enough opportunities and resources? Are we going to be very ethical? What kind of theories we are applying? Is it the theory
Yes.
that I know how to apply it, right? So based on
Absolutely.
the nature, maybe you're thinking to run countrywide national survey, but you have only 3 months in your hand. Running a survey is not a problem, but collecting the survey response and
Obviously,
cleaning the
obviously.
data and editing the data is the most challenging part, right?
Yeah,
So we need to be
obviously.
very strategic and practical, being an engaged research, right? So this is the kind of things which is quite important, and particularly the principles of engaged research. I have borrowed this from the web link that I have provided. It's not in reference form, but if you click the link, immediately you will find that how Paul James and Maggie, they are arguing about the philosophies of engaged research. This is a the second one is a very popular research book that can be used as a handbook. Even you can download its electronic version. Even I have the free copy. If you want, you can email me. I'm happy to share this one. This is called the Bible of Social Science Research. Brian is a colleague based in Oxford. Even I do follow his work a lot. Even you can look at the book from the last one that I have listed here. But originally, I used these books while I was teaching social research method at the University of Western Sydney and also the University of Wollongong. Instead, you can use some other books such as Sarantacos. You can use some books on doing qualitative research like Hammarskjöld. You can look at Williams. You can look at David Silverman. You can look at other books as well. These are the globally renowned books. You can look at the Babi as well. Babi has written a very interesting books. So I will share the rest of the learning materials with Dr. Nondi. So I feel now the floor will open for Q&A, and I would like to